Welcome to Leadership Spotlight, a podcast that shines the spotlight on L&D and HR leaders from leading businesses around the world. Learn the ins and outs of everyday leadership, what it means to be a leader, and all the learning and skilling that goes into making a successful leader that you would like to follow. So lean in and lead on. What makes great leaders? Is it only the ability to lead and guide? No, it goes above and beyond, encompassing the connectedness, emotional intelligence, and deep passion for discovering and unlocking the latent potential in people. Trustworthy leaders demonstrate an exceptional ability to lead people through crisis by building in them a conviction in their own capabilities. A secret mantra revealed by Anil Nair, a leader with over 22 years of experience in learning and development, talent management, succession management, leadership capability building, and sales. The Zydus Group's COE and lead for organizational learning and leadership development, Anil is a strong proponent of building people to build the business and walks the talk by being a passionate people leader for over 25,000 people at his current organization. He is known to put his entrepreneurial ability in action to institutionalize many L&D and HR related processes and brings along an attitude of openness to new ideas and technology. Hi Anil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Pranjali.
You're a leader with over 22 years of experience in learning and development. You're known for your entrepreneurial ability and are a passionate people leader. Fill in the critical missing pieces in this short introduction about yourself and your journey.
Well, thank you, Pranjali, for this exclusive opportunity and speaking about myself or perhaps, about an individual is always an honor. So my journey for the past 22 years has been a blend of multiple roles like sales, training, talent management, learning and development, and center of excellence lead. I've cherished every moment and transition in my career span. Pranjali, I come from a middle class family and not the rich class. So post my graduation in science, I had to pick up a job and chances of higher education or a management degree could not materialize. And no, it was only last year, after 21 years of my career, I completed my MBA in HR through distance learning. Meanwhile, a lot of what I learned in my MBA was already an opportunity for me to practice. Today, I lead the organization learning and leadership development for a top pharma organization, and this is my 17th year in this enterprise. My basic responsibility is to ensure capability building of talent across the enterprise in all its ways. I love what I'm doing and would say that my passion for people and organization development has always allowed me to handle my profession with utmost excitement always.
Your journey is very illustrious, Anil. Two things that really stand out for me are you said your beginnings were from a middle class. And second, you completed your MBA in HR just a year before. It speaks greatly into if you have the real passion, you will achieve it no matter what.
Thank you.
What I'm curious to know though is you also mentioned you have experience in sales. So how did this pivot from sales to L&D, which in my opinion is a pretty large leap, really come about? Was it something that happened organically as you were trying to maybe find a career for yourself? Or did you have a mindset that said that you wanted to go on this trajectory to reach where you are today?
Well, Pranjali, whenever I have interviewed people for L&D roles, I've always asked them one question. Why do you want to get into L&D? And generally, it is observed that L&D becomes an undisputable choice for handling it smooth or to keep it soft or say easy work kind of requirements at different phases of career. Somehow, the entire image of L&D in the industry has not been substantially as deliverables or a strategic partner to business. And also, people generally, in response to the questions that I choose to ask, say that because they are good presenters, communicate well, or have some history of stage or public presence, they think they can do very well in L&D. L&D many a times is misrepresented as only an operational training function and dedicated towards organizing and conducting development programs. Now, that's the misunderstanding I also had. When I moved from sales to sales training, what excited me most was getting to play the role of an anchor. But the maturity came some years later when the word L&D was understood. And I realized that there's a lot more to learn. And today, too, the learning continues. My growth in L&D can be attributed to the mindset of openness and curiosity. It's like that famous saying that the more you know that you know less. Now that's the mindset required to grow in L&D. I thought I had that. And because the primary role of L&D is also to facilitate organization capability building, and that is not possible without itself choosing to listen and learn. So I would say in all preparedness, my openness to learn and my curiosity has helped me take up this role into this facet to what it is today.
And how do you think sales as a function, maybe what you picked up as a key skill to sell or to present a solution, is now lending well as you find a career and climb the ladder in learning and development function?
Yeah, sales has always helped me. I am a proud individual who always would say that I started my journey picking up a bag and meeting my customers as a sales representative. Now, if I would not have picked up a career in sales, I don't think so I would have known exactly where the show pinches. So today, in spite of me having elevated to this role as an organization leader, perhaps the most enterprising thing in my career has always been my initial few years when I have worked and been a feet on the street. Unless and until I would have had that kind of an experience, I don't think so I would have catapulted myself to this role today and would have been able to understand what exactly is needed for an organization of people to develop. So perhaps the transition from sales to L&D, though it was more of a choice and a passion, but I would always owe it to my career in sales in the initial few years that has helped me become successful today.
And I'm not surprised, Anil, knowing how empathetic you are, how compassionate you are. I'm sure all of these skills have been honed as you went through with your sales experience and then into L&D too. Now, I want to talk about something that you believe in, and which is building people to build the business. I want to know your thoughts on leadership with respect to, are leaders born or do you think they can be built?
Well, Pranjali, I am always of the firm opinion that there are three things which, when come together, they build an individual. First is the individual's innate talent. Second is an opportunity to demonstrate that innate talent. And third is a small little portion of luck. Now, luck obviously isn't under anyone's control, so let's leave it. But the rest of the two are. An organization can grow only when its people grow. And people can grow only when their innate talent is met with an opportunity. Organizations that spot talented individuals and provide an opportunity, they result into building people, those who not only build business, but grow and progress the business as well. Now, these talented individuals take the organization to its next level of excellence and ensure that it's sustained and it's progressive. These are the guys who evolve as leaders who lead the organization from what it is to what it is expected to be. So now if you ask, are leaders born or they can be made? I would say a little bit of both is needed. Now let's take an analogy here. You can teach music to someone who has the basic comprehension of sur, lay and tal. So someone who knows there is deep richness in music and has an innate desire to learn, imbibe and practice. Likewise, leaders, I believe, also have some basic traits. Now, they would have absorbed it either during their upbringing or self-developed it in some way by getting inspired, but that is essential. And then is the opportunity in the form of either trust, development, investment, etc. that the organization chooses to make. So that's how the dormant leadership or the latent potential gives rise to leaders, promising leaders who in turn contribute to build the business.
This reminds me of a very famous quotation from Oprah Winfrey. She says that there is nothing like luck, or if you have to at all define luck, it is when preparation or talent meets opportunity.
Yeah, perfectly.
I want to just dig a bit deeper into this because there is another probably conflicting thought, perhaps, which is by another author called Malcolm Gladwell. And he has made a study and a research basis of a sample size across industries and across all disciplines. And he says that to really have mastery in anything, you need to have clocked about 10,000 hours of it, meaning practice. Because we spoke about innate talent and something that's latent to people, do you think just practice, even if it's deliberate, without innate talent, may build someone into a leader?
Well, there are new opinions on this. Number one, there are many innate talents or the latent potential of individuals which they themselves do not know. So you need to kindle it in them. Only when if it is kindled, they realize that they have an innate talent, what can be utilized and what can contribute in a big way to themselves and to the organization that they work in. Second thing is the individuals who do have innate talent and a desire but do not have an opportunity. So to these kind of individuals, it's only the opportunity what they get, they're able to leverage it in their best possible way. So that would be my answer to your question.
Understood. So, how do you want to then say is entrepreneurial ability a key to leadership, or do you think they are mutually exclusive?
Well, the word entrepreneur is very dear to me because I've always tried to be one. See, when you consider your work as a necessity, you will always tend to have a limit to what you can contribute. But if you behave like an entrepreneur yourself, then that's a lot that you can do. Now, entrepreneurial mindset is a mutual commitment. If you need committed individuals to work for you, you need to give them an opportunity and trust them to be committed. Commitment comes from ownership, and ownership comes from involvement. Those organizations who involve their employees for key decision making, they create a culture of ownership. And it is this ownership that breeds commitment in individuals who do not mind sacrificing for organization's progress. They start operating like entrepreneurs who take risks and become completely committed to achieve the business goals. Now, individuals with such a mindset can be tapped by empowering them with small independent tasks and monitoring how well do they conduct it, and also ensuring of backing up their failures, if any. So thus, organizations with just an element of trust and empowerment can generate entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial cultural mindset in the organization. And individuals who do not accept their work as a job, but consider their work as their passion, they are the guys who are likely to evolve as successful entrepreneurs in the organization. So that's how mutually inclusive or exclusive it is.
I'm just curious to know, are there ways to spot someone with a passion like this or who can be developed to have an entrepreneurial mindset?
There are, as I just made a mention, in case if you need to tap this mindset, you need to trust your people and at the same time give empowerment. So these are the two things which helps an organization to identify and tap entrepreneurial mindset in an individual. When you give them some independent tasks and keep monitoring, you'll tell to realize that there are some kind of potentials what they would not have identified earlier, which is now put into practice. But at the same time, not all entrepreneurial individuals become successful because of the fear that what is it that will happen in case if they fail, because they are not putting their own money at task, it is the organization's investment. So it's only the backing up of the organizations and the culture of promoting entrepreneurial ability that helps you to evolve entrepreneurs into organizations.
Agreed. I think fear is the one big thing that stops all of us from achieving our true potential. I also want to talk about trust a bit because trust leads to empowerment, which leads to ownership. I want to understand how trust plays a key role in today's situation where everyone is working in a remote environment and there is a lot of trust that has to be given to your teams for them to function to their optimum.
Well, let's define trust. How do you define trust? Now, trust is nothing but it's an ability to prove your competence, which allows the other individual trust you over a period of time. And it is not something which can be generated overnight. It is something which takes immense amount of an experience with the other individual, good or bad, that develops a trust in the person. And trust helps you develop a kind of a strong emotional connectedness with the other individual. So if you ask me how can trust be developed, trust can only be developed over a period of time with your own competence, with your own consciousness, and with your own conscience. And that too only if the other individual has experienced it in multiple times and in multiple ways of yours with it.
Amen to that. The more you give is the more you get, truly. So, what are the key ingredients for becoming a passionate people leader?
Well, Pranjali, when we say people, we generally forget that the leader is also one among them. At the end of the day, both are the same. I would say humans. The humans have an exceptional gift of God with which they connect or even disconnect, and we call it emotions. Now, irrespective of anywhere in the world, it is the emotions that drive humans. Humans understand the language of emotions much faster and deeper than they understand the language of logic. And it's true for everyone. Now, history has always proven that emotionally well connected leaders have always emerged to be more powerful than others. To be a passionate people leader, you need to be emotional. You need to be having a connectedness with people. Connectedness gets generated with existing commonalities, and commonalities can be identified only if you exchange emotions. Now, no leader is a leader if he or she does not have a follower. The predominant difference here is if one has to follow anyone, it has to be with his or her own choice. Nobody can compel. And people will make it their choice to follow someone only if they feel emotionally connected. If, as a leader, you have false emotions, it is soon that you will end up losing your followers and your identity as a leader. So, according to me, one of the key ingredients to be a passionate people leader is emotions and connectedness. An emotional and a connected leader will always keep the interest of his followers first before his or her self interest, irrespective of circumstances. And that's the trait of a passionate people leader, which the followers like and love, and choicefully makes them follow the leader.
How do you build this emotional quotient though? Are there some tools and techniques that can be used for all of us to cultivate emotional quotient in us?
Well, I would not say that a leader is selfless because he is also a human. But the only key ingredient to develop this emotional connectedness is keeping the interest of his people first than his own self-interest. There are times of crisis and challenges when a leader also succumbs to it. And at that point of time, the testing of leadership, fails him to be called as a leader. So it's only during those circumstances where individuals and people are not able to cope up. It is there leaders who try sacrificing in the interest of the people, keep the interest of the people first, and then attains his self-interest. This is what gains, trust of the followership, and this is what helps him create a better leader at times. And this is how emotionally he gets well connected to others.
This speaks well into a book by Simon Sinek. He says that leaders eat last. I think this is exactly what you were trying to say when you said sometimes leaders have to put the interest of the followers before themselves.
Yeah, true.
Coming to my last question, Anil, before I let you go, what is your leadership mantra?
Well, I would say a famous quote which is very close to my heart, and it says, leadership is the ability to start evolutionary changes which are adaptive in nature. Now, leaders emerge during a situation of crisis. They take charge, they initiate changes, and create a new world order. Now, such leadership is remembered for generations to come for what it has contributed to change the lives for better. And that's my leadership mantra.
Thank you so much, Anil, for being so open with your journey and your experience with us.
Thank you, Pranjali. It was so nice.
Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Spotlight. To learn how you can go from learning to leading, visit www.plathoralearning.com. See you next time.